philosophers have extolled the virtues of mind over matter. Today, newspapers, magazines, and the internet have provided many patient accounts of miraculous success in healing holistically those that previously had life-threatening diseases. Many attribute these cures to the mind, body, and spirit working in harmony and balance. And my guest will want you to understand the mind is a powerful tool. Don't waste it. And my guest is Danielle Skokan, whose his business name is Holistic Health. Smithtown Holistic Health. Okay, so how did you get involved in this, and what's your genesis on that?
Okay, well, my background is I started as a registered nurse. I am still a registered nurse. And I worked, my specialty was pediatrics. I worked in Long Island Jewish for a while. But I became very disillusioned with mainstream medicine because I felt it wasn't geared towards prevention. So I went out of the hospital setting and started to administer the Head Start program in Suffolk County. And I implemented preventive health programs on a preschool level. I went on to get my master's and my PhD, and then I decided that I wanted to start my own practice in holistic health, and that's sort of how it all came about.
Yeah, so you didn't find the system that was there before you to be satisfying clients that you could satisfy, right?
Not in reference to prevention, no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying there isn't a need for, tertiary care and mainstream medicine in certain instances, but it wasn't geared towards prevention. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I did what I did.
So how would you define holistic health?
How I define it is really, the mind, body, and the spirit working in sync. It's a trinity. So it's not just what you, are taking from an external point. It's what you're doing from an internal point as well.
There's a term out there called the natural health provider. I'm familiar with the term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a difference, or is that part of, or the same, or similar? How would you categorize the natural health provider in you?
Well, natural health provider could be anybody. I think the reason that I was drawn to becoming a registered nurse was that it credentialized me. In other words, anybody could be a natural health provider, but because I am a registered nurse and studied anatomy and physiology and then got my master's, I think in reference to holistic health, it helps people to be able to trust what you're saying, let's say.
What do you think the relativity would be with the medical profession in terms of how they view you and how you view them?
Well, they've come a long way. They're trying to incorporate now holistic and, mainstream together. So I think that they're starting to recognize it. What hasn't happened, though, is the the paradigm of how people think about their bodies has not shifted enough to get to, total prevention.
Mm-hmm. So there needs to be more heading
education.
in the same direction.
Yeah.
And what would that be primarily? Would it be mostly the mental issue they have with it? Because mind, body, and health is a lot of things that are maybe not the necessarily blood pressure, although I know that it's involved, but the number that you get out of a blood pressure read. You want to work on the number that you're getting out of a blood pressure read through your own method, right? Through ways that you think are better.
My theory is kind of radical, okay? I believe that a person should stay healthy until God takes them home. So because it's incumbent upon us to take care of this temple that God has given us. And in order to do it, you have to know what to eat, how to deal with your emotions, what kind of relationships you have, and also to have a connection to a higher power. That's an extremely important part of this particular practice that I have.
How do you go about elevating the thoughts of the higher power? How do you go about bringing them in? Is there a way that you can describe what you would do in that area?
Well, the fact you have to believe in God, to start. I mean, that's really a very integral part of it, that there is something beyond yourself that is not so much orchestrating, but there is something beyond yourself that resides inside you. And that power that's within you will help to heal you or to keep you well if you know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about vitamins and their use and supplements and things that are like that?
Well, I do use whole food vitamins in my practice. One of the products I use is from Standard Process, and it's all organic products that are whole foods, like, you know, beans and carrots and all that kind of stuff that they combine into a tablet. And I find that that is more conducive to the synergy in the body than taking a vitamin that has been produced in a laboratory and doesn't have all the intrinsic factors that God put into, you know, the fruits and the vegetables that grow in the ground.
Some of the people that take vitamins, when discussed with somebody like yourself, not necessarily you, say that some of the vitamins that are on the market are called toilet torpedoes.
They are.
So they're not efficient enough, they're not...
Well, the body, they don't have all the intrinsic factors that God put into regular, you know, vitamins that are grown. So what happens is when you take it in, your vibrations go off. Like, for instance, calcium. A lot of people take calcium. They can't break it down. So they get stones, kidney stones or gallbladder stones, because the body can't break it down, you know, normally. You have to be careful about the vitamins that you take. One of the things that I do in my practice that I felt elevated it was I do kinesiology. So when people come in to see me, they bring bags of vitamins that they're taking, and I will test them through the kinesiology, arm test them to see if those particular vitamins they're taking are good for their body. If they're good for their body, their arm will stay strong. If they're not, their arm will go down.
What about
so I
people-
teach them how to do this even if they go into a supermarket. Take a can, say, of peas and put it up against your body. If your arm stays strong with that particular can, then it's going to help to digest, you know, to assimilate. If it doesn't, your arm will go right down. It drains you.
There's talk about people getting, especially older, they're getting muscle cramps and things that are like that. I know occasionally I get cramps sometimes at night. I don't expect it. I don't know why it shows up, but some people say it's more water. Other people say, like what you're saying, that the nutrition, the quality of the things that I'm taking, that others may take, may not be there for them.
It's probably minerals. Calcium, magnesium, zinc, selenium. You may need certain minerals that your body is depleting through maybe what you're eating.
Right, right. So you have to do the whole thing. You have to do diet, exercise, you have to do mental, right?
Yeah.
Mental conditioning.
But it's nothing that's going to cost anything. You know, it's food, it's sunshine, it's exercise, it's having an attitude of gratitude, it's forgiveness, it's doesn't really cost you anything. You go to a doctor, it costs you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So what you're doing is you're taking the time to take care of yourself so that you don't have to go for surgery, take drugs, because any drug that you take is going to affect your liver, it's going to affect your kidney, it's going to affect everything.
And people who take blood pressure medicines or statin drugs for their cholesterol and things that are like that,
Not the best.
no, they could be helped in what way? By changing?
Well, magnesium, soybean lecithin, wheat germ. There's a lot of things that they could take depending. You know, they're really, what I've learned through this is, you know, they always say, oh, if you, this miracle vitamin came out and it's going to help. No, there's no panacea. Everybody's body is different. So you have to know what your body needs at a particular time. We're all different. We're all genetically different.
When you go to the doctor, the average person goes to the doctor because they have some kind of symptom. So they're working with, I got this ache in my neck and I want to figure out what that is, and they'll go to the doctor or a chiropractor to fix the symptom. There is a strong possibility that it could simply be a matter of nutrition or rest.
Or you may just have your, you know, whole back, your vertebrae may be off. That's a very important part of it too. Chiropractic is, I think, very important when it's done right.
There's an advertisement I've been hearing a lot on the news, and I'm afraid I can't think of the name of it, but maybe we're better off I don't think of the name of it, but it advertises a whole bunch of vitamins in
a packet.
No, in one pill.
Yeah.
I can't think of it. It
A
doesn't
multi?
matter.
Like a multi?
No, vegetables.
Oh, well, that's whole food. It could be whole food.
And supposedly everybody does better with this. And I hear the advertisement. They're drowning the radio with the amount of advertisements I hear of it.
Again, you know, with all the seminars that I've been to and all the education behind me, what I have found is that you have to see if it's working in your body. In other words, is it good for your body? And that's why I do the kinesiology, because even if it's a whole food product, it still may not be good for you at that particular time.
You mentioned before about shifting a societal paradigm, about the shifting the language and shifting an idea that the public has out there about something, but you'd like to change that.
Right.
Describe that a little bit.
Well, I think that, when it comes to health, people think when you reach a certain age that you're going to get something. You need a knee replacement, you need a hip replacement, you need this, you need that. That's not true. There are people all over the world, in tribes and all over, that are living to 120, men who are climbing mountains, who look physically fit. It's the American people who have this paradigm that once you hit 65, well, then you're supposed to retire. That's not good. Most people who retire at 65 start to get Alzheimer's because they don't, do anything with their brain. So the paradigm shift is when I say people, well, you're going to stay well until you die. They say, well, how are you going to die? You're just going to pass on to another level. Why do you have to get sick to die?
Mm-hmm. No, it's an interesting point. Okay, let's try to get into the spirituality portion of it. What part do you think that plays
Huge.
In your practice? Okay.
Huge.
And what if you were talking to someone who maybe doesn't spend any time? There are people, let's face it, who are somewhat secularist in their mentality and their thought process, and they don't have any belief system that there is a God to begin with. How do you work with that kind of person? Let's say you had that kind of person. You wouldn't be able to work with them?
No. I would not, because my philosophy would not work with them being an atheist. Mm-hmm. The part of having an attitude of gratitude and knowing that there is that there is a God is an intricate part of what I believe and how I teach. It's it's what I believe, and it works.
All right, let's go to what we talked about on the phone, and that is, how is it that people are affected? And I'm curious about the full impact of the placebo effect. Why is it that some people take a strange pill and think it does well for them, and maybe it's a sugar pill and doesn't, but they think it does and has the power of the mind? Is that what it's about?
Well, I just heard of an experiment that was done on, orthoscopic knee surgery.
Yeah.
They took 6 patients, and 3 of them, they did the actual orthoscopic surgery, okay? The other 3, they put under anesthesia and just put 3 little holes in their knee. And after 6 months, the prognosis was exactly the same. So it is mind over matter. Your mind and your brain plays a very, very big part in what is happening in your body.
The placebo...
That's a placebo, actually.
Right. Carries weight from a long time ago. There were people who believed in it a long time ago, and there were tests that show what you're saying is true.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. If you're logical and a practical mind, you can't see that. You can't say, well, how is that going to work? They don't get the possibility, right?
Well, what you think has a cellular effect on your body. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, you're going to bring into your environment negative situations. You have to elevate your mind to a level where, again, this is where God comes in. When you know that there is a God who loves you and only wants the best for you, you will draw into your life more positive situations. You will work from that plane instead of working from a negative plane.
Completely get that, and I also know that it's true, but I just can't put my finger on the logic. But I think you explained it better than...
There is no,
there's no logic
Chris,
to that.
There's no logic to it.
Well, you just gave me a decent answer.
Is there logic to faith? If you think about faith, there is no logic to faith, but
there
it
are
works.
people who do extremely well with faith.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's no logic to it. There doesn't have to be logic to it.
Because logic is in this world that we're in, the linear thought world, right?
Well, it's like, when God first created the world, he called the thing that be not into being. So what I mean by that is you have to imagine that it's there before it even happens. That's how God created the world. He called the thing, let there be light, let there be. So in your own life, if you're saying to yourself, I'm going to get sick, you're going to get sick. If you're saying to yourself, I'm going to stay healthy, I'm going to take care of my body, you have a better chance, I'm not saying 100%, but you have a better chance of being effective in that realm.
Can you give us any examples of people that you've worked with in the way that you want to work with them, and what how did it manifest itself? How did it work? And what did they say afterward? Things like that.
Yeah, well, I had one woman who came in with very bad Lyme's disease, and she had, intravenous in her arm, and she had been to all kinds of doctors and aches and pains. And I started working with her, and I put her on some standard process supplements that would clean her liver very gently. And within 3-4 months, she started to feel better. She got off the antibiotics and everything.
So it can work.
It can work. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it works in my life.
So
It works. I have 2 labs. It works in their lives. I mean,
Yeah.
I never bring them to the vet other than for just annual checkups. And one is 11 and one is 7. You saw them, and
Yeah.
they're in perfect health. Thank God.
Let's go towards until God takes you home. The simplistic idea that you purported, that your goal is to put the person in charge of their own body. I liked that, until God takes them home. So those 2 things mean a lot to me. When I first saw that you had written that, has anybody else felt the same way I did about it, or do they question you about it, or does that work for you in how you deliver your work?
Well, in my world, I deal with a lot of Christians. So yes, a lot of them do feel that way. They feel that way. It's not secular thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a Christian philosophy.
Did you come up with that? It's a nice phrase. I'm
no,
just curious.
I didn't actually. Gloria Copeland came up with that.
I don't know.
I like Gloria.
It works
Copeland.
for you.
It works.
People have said that when Trump was taking his physical, if you remember, CNN had a controversy between him and his doctor and what was going on, that he might be portly and may not be in the best of health. Turns out that he was in the best of health. But what do we have to make of that if you're looking for health and looking for what people say about that? How do you respond to that?
Well, secular news will. I mean, if he was flying in the sky, they would say that it's totally impossible. So whatever they say about him is always negative.
That's going to be the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to find something to say negatively about Trump.
One of the things you also talked about was the imagery, the power of prayer, visualization techniques. I'll go one by one. Let me start with the imagery.
The imagery is, God said that you should not put any limits on God. There is nothing impossible with God, and you shouldn't put any limits on Him. And throughout the Bible, it talks about your imagery. In fact, there is a Jewish word, I think it's YESEH, for the imagination, and what it means is to conceive.
Those are the first 4 letters in yeshiva.
Something like that. But it means to conceive. So even, like I said before, you have to call the thing that be not into being. Even before anything happens, you have to see it in your mind's eye so that it begins to happen. Act as if, in other words. Conceive it, like as if you were giving birth to a child. Conceive it in your mind's eye first and move towards it.
That crosses a lot of planes. In sports, we think about creating, I know I did a lot of that, putting in play the successes that you have in your thoughts and in your dreams before you approach something, that you're going to make contact. This is not something you're going to miss. And if you're going to make a basket, you're going to make the basket. It's going to flow off you. If you think about it all ahead of time.
Well,
There's another name for that, but I can't think of what it is.
Wasn't there a study done with basketball players who were told to just imagine themselves making the basket, and others that were actually practiced? And again, they found that the percentage was the same because they imagined it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tremendous. The power of positive thinking. People
and the power
say that.
of the mind. Yeah.
The visualization techniques, the meditation, I think, visualization. I didn't say that right the first time. What is that? Is that the same type of thing? The imagery issue is another way to describe the same thing?
Imagery issue plus, like when people are trying to lose weight, don't they tell you to put a picture of yourself on the refrigerator when you were thin so that you can move towards it? Make a vision board of how you want to, look when you lose the weight, and it'll help you to move for it.
Let's hope everybody should save their old pictures when they were thin. So just in case.
But even when you're trying to create something new in your life, when you're going through a transitory period in your life, if you make a vision board of how you want your life to look, you'll see that you actually will move towards it. Your life will, after about a year or two, you'll look back and say, wow, you know, that's very similar to my vision board.
Where most of my work is done, as you know, is in mediators and divorce mediation. So then I should envision put in mind the couple that I'm seeing, a rope tied around one of the other one's neck.
But you know, Chris, that's
Let's vision
negative.
this.
But that's negative.
Okay,
That's
all
a
right. I'm just
negative
coming up with
outcome.
something. So what else could work? Think about that. That'd be a tough one.
Well,
That would be a tough one. On my website, I put a picture of two people holding hands. It didn't look like they were wildly in love, but knew they had to cooperate for the children. And I think there's a good example. It worked.
yes, to cooperate for the children is very
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
But a lot of these divorces, from what I've seen, there's a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy in that too. You know, like, oh, well, this happened to so-and-so and that happened to so-and-so, so that the same thing is going to happen to me. Not necessarily.
No, we're listening.
Again, that's the paradigm.
I'm listening, though, because, you know, we see enough people that have
I know you do.
that kind of thought process, and it does carry forward. And, you know, it's the same thing with hiring an attorney. You know, like you hire an attorney. Well, Joe hired an attorney. My uncle hired an attorney. We should use him. Meanwhile, the attorney is not necessarily going to get you what you want.
No.
You have to get that
wind
from
up
within.
doing it yourself. Yeah, most of it you
So,
do.
in the last minute or two, are there any other homeopathic remedies that you could suggest at the end that might be unique to your practice?
I don't use
Other than those, I know we know we just
yeah.
talked about a couple.
Yeah,
I
right.
realize
I
that.
don't use a lot of homeopathics. I use a lot of whole food, you know, and then, you know, good nutrition. You know, I'm not, you know, I don't believe in diets. I think that all of us, I mean, I eat what I want to eat, but I eat everything in moderation. I think it's important, you know. And I also think you need to, you know, a lot of these health food products that they have taste terrible. So what's the point of eating them if they taste terrible?
Isn't that somewhat of a factor in how well you feel by how things taste?
Yeah, it kind of activates your digestive system when something smells good and tastes good. You know, there's nothing wrong with having some dark chocolate once in a while. It's very medicinal, you know, or a piece of cake once in a while. What's the difference, you know?
So in the last minute or two, tell us a little bit about your practice before we go. You have about a minute and a half left.
Thanks.
Well,
it's a holistic practice, and I do phone consults, and I have people come in.
Okay.
As I said, they'll bring the vitamins that they're on, and then I counsel them, seeing what's happening in their life, and then I also do a visual. I'm very good with looking at somebody and seeing what they may need nutritionally or what's off with them. So I do that, and I take a history and physical, you know, by talking to them.
And testing, physical testing sometimes.
I use a process from Germany called the Vega. These are little vials, and I could tell if there's a virus or there's bacteria or if there's yeast or there's anything in their system. I could test all the organs in the system by using these little vials that Germany uses. Again, that's very holistic.
Mm-hmm. Well, Danielle, thank you very much. Smithtown Holistic Health Practice, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
You've been watching Gray Matters, a program that shines a light on events in the society we live in and the need for education and reform. We keep you up to speed in the world of politics, exciting trends like this one, and hot-button issues of the day. Remember, you can't get this information just anywhere, so we'll see you in your TV room next week. Thank you for watching.